Britain's conversation. This is LBC with Christo. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC.
Morning. Christo here on LBC. Well, what an interesting conversation we've been having about whether you should be able to take the mickey out of someone's religion and the situations in which it's acceptable and those that it isn't. 0345 6060 973. Have you ever called 999 for a joke? Go on, be honest. Have you ever prank called the emergency services? And if so, why? Or do you know someone that ever has? 84850, or give me a call, 0345 6060 973. Coming up, well, I've been quite sad about this news in the last 24 hours. 0345 6060 973. To Redbridge now and to Abbas. Morning, Abbas.
Hi there. Good morning, Christo.
So, yes, go on.
Question to
yes.
you.
Yes.
Why do you think we have laws not to, be discriminatory towards homosexuals or a racial, person? Why do you think we have those laws in place, Christo?
Because what laws are you talking about? Firstly, are you talking about hate crime laws, or are you talking about discrimination laws, or are you talking about?
Well, even if I started making fun of you for being a homosexual in public,
well, that's. I don't know if you could. I mean, I think you could be arrested if you were trying to incite violence or hatred towards me. If you were taking if you were taking the mickey out of me, I don't think you'd be arrested.
No, if I was to make a racial comment about somebody in public, that is an arrestable offence. You're aware of that, aren't you?
Yeah, if it was a racial slur, then yes.
No, it doesn't have to be a racial slur. If I tell the police that this person made this comment, I'm of Asian origin. If I said this person called me the P word, and I was very offended, I found that to be very racist, the law now says that individual could actually get arrested.
But yeah, because it's a slur. That's why I'm saying it's a slur.
Right. So why do you think that law's in place, Christo?
Because it's stopping people, I guess, being inciting hatred. It's stopping people who are feeling like they're being discriminated against, and it's stopping people who are facing adversity about something that they cannot change in their lives.
Okay, cannot change in their lives is not a matter of law. It's about social cohesion and keeping society in a harmonious way, because otherwise we recognise that there would not be harmony in society if we allow such things to fester.
So that's why we have laws stopping racial and homophobic slurs and stopping hate crimes.
So why would it be any different then to ridicule and make fun of somebody's religion? Why would it be any different? Because
that's not a slur, it's ridiculing, and religion is a choice, whereas sexuality and race isn't.
But
it's the same. It's the same way as it's exactly the same as taking the mickey of someone's political belief. For instance, I could say, as a Tory. Go on,
Christo. We all know, and we've got to be sensible here, that people of religious belief, predominantly, mostly, are not going to be as hurt as somebody making comments about their political beliefs. It's not the same thing. We recognise that. To try to make it out as if they're exactly the same thing or they're on par is quite frankly ridiculous.
What, so you're saying that you have more right to be offended by a religious mickey taking, or you have more right to be offended by a religious mickey taking?
I believe that if we wish society to be harmonious, and we don't want that small element of people who unfortunately would probably take the law into their own hands, get angry, possibly even become violent, then the laws in place are there to prevent that from happening. And religion would fall into exactly the same thing as... I don't care if somebody takes the mickey out of me for being originally Indian, even though I was born here. It wouldn't bother me. But if somebody ridicules and deliberately tries to cause... Like, for example, when you talk about cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I was offended. I wouldn't necessarily...
Were you offended?
Yeah, I was offended because somebody who I hold very dear to my heart was being insulted by missiles and bombs being shown hidden in their turban, for example.
Well, just don't look at it. Just don't look at it. Just don't look at it.
It's not about... No, but Christo...
So just to drill down. So the mere fact that you knew that this picture or cartoon existed offended you?
Yes.
I mean, I've never heard of anything so ridiculous in my life. So you'd have it censored. You'd have these things censored. Would you make that a rule of law?
No, what I would do, Christo, is I would say that for society to remain harmonious, we should not show lack of decorum and respect for one another and for one another's beliefs. I have no problem somebody criticizing my religion. I have many videos on YouTube debating with people at Speaker's Corner. I have no issue with people saying your religion is rubbish because of X, Y, and Z. No problem about that whatsoever. We can have an intellectual debate about those things. But if you start ridiculing, making fun and mocking, that is insulting.
I don't care. I don't care, Abbas. I don't care that you find that insulting. If I'm a comedian, I'm not. But if I were, I have every single right, as long as I don't incite hatred, as long as I don't incite violence, I've every right to take the mickey and to parody and to joke about your choice, your decision to believe in something that, as a comedian, I may think is preposterous.
Are you sure that it doesn't incite violence, Christo? Because when you keep demeaning a people and making them look like, putting bombs under the turban of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, you're sending these messages out to people who are bigoted within our society, and some of them are and have been driven to violence.
So basically we have to legislate again for the lowest common denominator.
Chris, let me just finish. It's often a barrage of not just criticism, not just abuse and what have you, but it's putting these messages out which eventually, I think, persuade, and I would agree that it's a small minority of people who do become violent. It feeds the monster within, as it were, of bigotry. And the more you feed it, the stronger it becomes. And the result of that, because every cause has an effect, as minuscule and as unimportant as you might think a group of cartoons to be, they are fodder for some bigots out there, which will create violence, which will create problems in society.
So how would we go about then resolving that? Because then we couldn't take the mickey out of the Islamic faith, we couldn't take the mickey out of the Christian faith, so basically we just wouldn't have any more religious-based comedy.
Well,
so you'd ban Dave Allen, you'd ban Jackie Mason, you'd ban any of those comedians that used to take the mickey out of religion, because the off chance that by them doing so, a psychopath whom we constantly hear about, by the way, we constantly hear from every single religious person that anyone who commits any acts of violence have got nothing to do with that religion whatsoever, but on the off chance that one of those psychopaths who now may suddenly be connected to the religion, that we've heard millions of times that they aren't, on the off chance they may hear that comedy and be so mind-numbingly stupid they think it's carte blanche to go and be violent towards someone, on that off chance, all comedy about religion would perhaps not be something you'd like to see.
Well, first of all, you've mentioned a lot of things there, very jumbled up, Christo, if I may say so.
Fine, okay, I'll be more succinct for you. You would ban, you want me to be more succinct, I will be. You would stop people performing comedy about religion on the off chance that someone might hear that and think that that's okay to attack someone who's religious.
I would suggest that if we wish to live in a society where we're going to, A, prevent a great hurt to a great number of people, number one, and number two, we would encourage bigotry, and we would encourage people to behave indecently towards people, whether it was mildly bigoted, making comments or pulling off somebody's hijab or spitting in their face, or I've seen videos of women who have nearly been pushed under trains, etc., because they wear a hijab, right? If it prevents that type of thing, then yes, I think it's a good thing to do, quite frankly.
So you'd like to live in a society where free speech is... So the answer is yes. You would like to see a society where the free speech about taking the mickey out of religious belief, religious choice, is in some way stilted, is in some way restricted.
Freedom comes with great responsibility, and we have responsibility even in this country towards many different types of people. If you take the mickey out of a Sikh person, it would be regarded as a racial thing, not necessarily just a religious thing, because most Sikhs come from Punjab. So we have intricate laws that protect people, because we understand that if you have carte blanche, a green light to say whatever you like to whoever you like.
You don't have that, though. That's not what we're endorsing. We don't have that.
We're going to be in a society where there will be mayhem and chaos.
But we don't have that.
There has to be some... Exactly.
You're talking rubbish, Abbas, because we don't have that.
That's exactly right. We don't have that. We don't have that for a reason.
But you'd go a step further. You would go a step further than what we have at the moment, which is completely sufficient to stop people inciting violence. You would actually have comedy restricted on the off chance that it incites violence. I've never heard anything so preposterous about it. Why are you living in a country of free speech if you want comedy restricted?
Because I love this country. This country is my home.
Clearly you don't love the fact that we're allowed to be...
I don't understand why living in a country that I love, that I was born in, somehow comes into question.
Because because we have values, right, of free speech regarding, certainly when it comes to parody, when it comes to comedy, when it comes to satire, which is one of the things we do so wonderfully well. And we have already laws in place in this country that protect people from the incitement of violence towards them, etc. You would have us be similar to a different country where free speech, when it comes to comedy and satire, is restricted. That's not something that we've ever had in the United Kingdom, ever.
Well, the whole point of having free speech, Christo, is that I can also air my view, right?
You absolutely can.
You might not agree with it. You might not agree with it. I don't force my view upon you, and I have a right to air my view.
You absolutely do, but by your logic, one day you wouldn't. By your very own logic, one day you wouldn't have a right to air the view you just have, Abbas, because you would stop people's views being aired.
Christo, you know what? That's quite ridiculous, quite frankly, because that's not what I'm talking about.
You would stop people being able to make jokes about religions.
I'm talking about if you get where do you put the boundaries, Christo? If the boundaries
inciting hatred and violence.
Hold on a second. If the boundaries are constantly allowed to move because social consensus is going that way, then where does it get to a stage where it perhaps becomes too much?
But that's why you have laws in place.
Hold on a second. Where does it get to a stage where it just becomes grotesque and is completely insulting to people's beliefs?
Well, that's why you have laws in place. That's why you cannot be inciteful of violence. But I can be as insulting as I like. I mean, it's not nice. I'm not saying it's kind, but I can be as insulting as I like if I wish to be.
But, Krista, don't you think by being as insulting as you like has an effect? Not just a little snigger or a little laugh or a little bit of humour, but has a greater effect on society, a psychological effect, if it's perpetuated again and again and again. Doesn't it have an effect on people?
Well, I think I'd be more concerned with the effect on society of limiting free speech.
Krista, let me just finish. Does it not differ a person's opinion about how they respect possibly their neighbour for being a Jew or for being a Christian?
Taking the mickey doesn't mean you don't respect them.
Of course it does, Christo.
Taking the mickey out of a religion doesn't mean you don't respect the person. You just don't respect their view or belief. But that doesn't mean that you don't respect the person. Are you so sensitive, Abbas, that you could not possibly accept a joke about your belief because you would believe that means that there would be no respect for you and therefore you wouldn't be able to take that? Because I find that, again, absolutely ridiculous. Satire doesn't mean you have to hate the person you're satirizing. Comedy comedy, yes, there is a butt of the joke, but that doesn't mean you have to hate that person. And if someone's stupid enough to listen to that and think, great, I'm going to go and be violent to someone, that's no reason to stop comedy. That is playing right into the hands of the very people who want to ban free speech, who want to restrict our rights.
Christo, just because you're logical or rational enough, or I might be, to decipher that from how I would feel about somebody else, say if there was a joke about, about Muslims or about Christians, and I might be able to decipher and dismantle that joke for what it was. The reality is that there are an awful lot of people, as we saw in the Brexit vote, probably another issue to discuss at another time again, but people are gullible, people are led, and people are unfortunately influenced by what they read or what they see. That's just human nature. Now, the vast majority of us may not necessarily be affected in a very adverse way.
So we have to legislate for the stupid. We legislate for the stupid.
Well, I believe when it's a significant minority, and I think the Brexit proves that a significant minority can be led up the garden path, then I think we have to be cautious and we have to be careful.
Abbas, I respect that. I'm going to have to go now because I've got to ring Dawn French and tell her that we're never going to laugh at the Vicar of Dibley ever again.
Good show, Christo. I always love your show.
I'm sorry, Abbas, but that is what you'd endorse, is we can never, ever laugh at the Vicar of Dibley ever again, because that means that we dislike the religious people in that. We dislike Dawn French's character. Absolutely absurd. And thank you to Pete, who actually sent me the text, saying, don't you dare talk about the Vicar of Dibley and laugh again. Unbelievable. Never heard anything like that. People wanting to restrict comedy. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call here on LBC.
This is LBC.